To live is to suffer. To survive is to find meaning in that suffering. So the nature of life is that there is always contrast. There exist polar opposites to your pleasant experiences in life, just simply waiting for the perfect time to strike you when you least expect it. Such is the nature of life. And no one, and I mean no one, is safe or immune to this truth. Live long enough and you'll find out that this contrast will find a way to take place in your life, whether you have been a saint or a degenerate who spend their lives hurting others like it's their job. Life is fair like that, or unfair. You decide. But don't worry, this video is not about the top 10 worst things that could happen in your life. It's actually about how you can deal with these things, how you can make sense of your difficulties, your misfortunes, your failures, your losses, and the emotional reaction you have to these things and the emotional turmoil that may lead to hopelessness and helplessness. We will talk about how you can actually use these darker aspects of your life in order to find the truth and find meaning and purpose in your life. But before we do that, if you're not already subscribed to my channel, here on this channel I talk about how you can find your passion and go after it at any age, how you can find balance even at the most difficult times in your life, and how you can be happy with the things and the people you already have surrounding you. So if you're interested, make sure to click the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. Now, let's get to today's topic. So talking about pain and suffering in life, the first thing you have to realize is that there are two ways, two types of events that evoke these negative emotions within us. The first one is the kind of suffering that we have no control over. This is the kind of suffering that you can only expect to have a visceral experience within you, which no words, numbers, or symbols can even come close to telling how you're really feeling inside. And the second type of suffering is the kind of suffering we could have control over if we choose to. And luckily, most of our pain points and problems in life fall into this category. And here we will focus on this one for obvious reasons. So point number one is to know how your mind works. It's to have sufficient knowledge on how your own mind operates. So if you're always happy, let's say that you have never experienced unhappiness, you wouldn't know that you're even happy because your mind doesn't have anything to compare it to. And eventually, soon enough, you're just going to find yourself being indifferent, bored, or even depressed because of the lack of contrasting events in your life. The value in all your pleasant experiences in life, such as your happiness, success, well-being, is only found in the awareness or some type of experience in your mind of the opposite experiences. These things are only as good as your mind's awareness or your mind's ability to know what it would be like or what it would feel like to be in lack or in absence of these things. And this is not only how your mind works, but it's also how everything in this world works. Something does not come into existence if its polar opposite is not already existing. This is also one of the 7 Hermetic principles, which states that every single thing that exists on Earth has its polar opposite. Just like light cannot exist without darkness, life cannot exist without death, and it's true for every single thing here on Earth. And of course, your pain and suffering and anything that you might be going through right now don't come to existence if your freedom, happiness, joy don't exist on some plane of existence already, because it's the law. And it's up to you to train your mind to know that these things already exist. And the best part is, the more pain and suffering you have in your life, the more problems you have in your life, the more difficulties that you have to go through in your life, it just means that the polar opposite is just as intense and just as great. And if you are the kind of person that is just so affected, negatively affected by everything that's happening in your life, if you are particularly unable to withstand all these negative things happening in your life, this realization is going to come in handy. You're just going to see that the bigger the problem, the bigger the success. And this is evident, everywhere you look. People who have achieved greatness, people who have achieved great things in their lives are also people who have gone through the most, adversities in their lives. People who have gone through things you can't even imagine have somehow made it out. They have come out the other side, the better version of themselves. They have now become hope and light to other people. They have achieved so many things in so many areas of their lives that you can't even imagine that they have gone through these things. But most of the time, this is the way it happens for people. When you look at the stories of people, you'll find out, if you can go beyond all the success and the glory and try to find out what happened in their past, how they came to be, how they have realized this type of life for themselves and also for others, you're going to be surprised. This means that they somehow knew of a life that was completely different than the one they were leading, and they chose to be the bridge between those two polar ends. They knew what it feels like to be in lack, to suffer, to be in pain, to have been abused, or not having anything to eat or whatever, living in abject poverty or failure, all these things. So now they appreciate every single thing that happens along the way, including their journey, and they decided to be the bridge, and you can be too. So point number 2 is to work with your suffering. It's like your worst enemy now becomes your biggest ally in life. It's like politics. It's beautiful. All the great lessons in life come from the difficulties we face. We've all heard of people saying that it took an illness, a loss, a terrible accident in order for them to wake up. And it's true. It's unfortunate, but it's true for most of us that it takes a disaster, a crisis in our lives before we can wake up and smell the coffee. And this is why it is believed that any type of pain and suffering that you might be going through can be used to build character. It can also be a humbling experience. It will help you kill that ego and also become the light for others, because you've already gone through something, and as long as you're not destroyed by it, as long as you come out the other side a better person, equipped with the knowledge and the wisdom that suffering and that pain has given you, you now become the light for others. You now become hope for others who might be going through the same things that you've gone through, and everyone else who can learn from this. So instead of fleeing the scene, you just don't want to be there experiencing this kind of pain, instead of distracting yourself with all kinds of useless things so that you don't feel the pain, if you actually sit with the pain, if you actually sit with the suffering and ask yourself, ask God, ask the universe, what are you trying to teach me? Then this is a way to work with your suffering, because your suffering is not for nothing. There is always a reason behind everything that's happening here. So it's up to you to try and be calm, trying to sit with that suffering, no matter how painful it might be, no matter how you have this urge to just distract yourself, to not experience the pain, because this way it would have been for nothing. If you have the tendency to immerse yourself in activities that are going to get you far, far away from these lessons that are provided for you in different forms of unpleasant experiences, unpleasant emotions, if you don't have that resilience, if you don't have that tenacity to face them and see them for what they really are and actually grow from that experience, then nothing will change. And everything that you might be going through right now, no matter how unlucky or unfair it might be, then things won't change. You will just repeat the cycle again and again until you decide to see the true meaning in this pain and suffering that you're going through. And if you really want to work with the suffering that is inevitable, that is, for everyone, no one will escape this. This is just that fairness of life that we talked about. Everyone will go through some type of unpleasant experience, some type of suffering period in their lives, and it just depends on each person what they decide to do with it. So learn to love the challenge, learn to sit with your suffering, because actually the only way to escape it and get yourself out of the situation is to face it. So point number 3 is the awakening. It's the leaving behind the illusion of the material world and coming to realize the true nature of things beyond this physical world. You will know that everything here is transient and that there is really no need in worrying about your superficial problems. Instead, you will gravitate towards actively searching for the meaning and lesson in every obstacle. This means that you're not going to dwell on problems. Instead, you're just going to have a completely different mindset, a different approach in how you approach them. Now, whenever something goes wrong, you're not going to go to your old ways of starting to worry, starting that clock, who knows, maybe for the next hours or days or weeks before you can stop. Instead, now it's going to be a whole new approach to this, where you look at them differently and you start to question, what's the lesson here? What can I do to get out of it maybe? What resources do I have? And with this attitude, all this mundane little problems that used to bother you will just disappear, and you'll start to focus on the more, on greater goals in your life. You'll start to look at all these things that you used to worry about, and all these things that you used to desire now start to dissolve, because you're now focusing on greater things in life. You'll come to know the higher truth of life. So naturally, you're not going to be bothered with all this illusion, all these man-made things that have happened recently, that they've made you believe that they are the standards of being human. Now, you're not going to be bothered too much about money. You're not going to be bothered about how the world looks at you, what other people think of you. You're not going to spend your time and your energy on worrying about things that don't even matter, because now you'll be focused on greater things. And that is what you should be doing. You should find out your calling, and your calling for all of us is to be a positive addition to humanity, to contribute positively to humanity, whatever it is that we're doing, no matter how minuscule, how small our contribution might be in our minds. That's what stops people from doing things, because they think they don't matter. They have no effect on the world, and stops them from fulfilling their calling. And whatever that might be for you, just keep going and learning of how to detach yourself from this bondage of the physical world, because in the end, it's not going to help you realize your true potential or your true calling in life. What's going to help you is to redirect your focus towards the real things in life, the things that transcend this illusion or this physical reality.